Chapter 8. I already know the camp on the moors. It was here that Himmelstas gave Tjaden his education, but now I know hardly anyone here. As ever, all is altered. There are only a few people that I have occasionally met before. I go through the routine mechanically. In the evenings, I generally go to the soldiers' home where the newspapers are laid out, but I do not read them. Still, there is a piano there that I am glad to play on. 2 girls are in attendance. One of them is young. The camp is surrounded with high barbed wire fences. If we come back late from the soldiers' home, we have to show passes. But those who are on good terms with the guard can get through, of course. Among the junipers and the birch trees on the moor, we practice company drill each day. It is bearable if one expects nothing better. We advance at a run, fling ourselves down, and our panting breath moves the stalks of the grasses and the flowers of the heather to and fro. Looked at so closely, one sees the fine sand is composed of millions of the tiniest pebbles, as clear as if they had been made in a laboratory. It is strangely inviting to dig one's hands into it. But most beautiful are the woods with their line of birch trees. Their color changes with every minute. Now the stems gleam purest white, and between them, airy and silken, hangs the pastel green of the leaves. The next moment all changes to an opalescent blue, as the shivering breezes pass down from the heights and touch the green lightly away. And again in one place it deepens almost to a black as a cloud passes over the sun, and the shadow moves like a ghost through the dim trunks and rides far out over the moor to the sky. Then the birches stand out again like gay banners on white poles, with their red and gold patches of autumn-tinted leaves. I often become so lost in the play of soft light and transparent shadow that I almost fail to hear the commands. It is when one is alone that one begins to observe nature and to love her. And here I have not much companionship and do not even desire it. We are too little acquainted with one another to do more than joke a bit and play poker or nap in the evenings. Alongside our camp is the big Russian prison camp. It is separated from us by a wire fence, but in spite of this, the prisoners come across to us. They seem nervous and fearful, though most of them are big fellows with beards. They look like meek, scolded St. Bernard dogs. They slink about our camp and pick over the garbage tins. One can imagine what they find there. With us, food is pretty scarce, and none too good at that. Turnips cut into 6 pieces and boiled in water, and unwashed carrot tops, moldy potatoes and tidbits. And the chief luxury is a thin rice soup in which float little bits of beef sinew. But these are cut up so small that they take a lot of finding. Everything gets eaten notwithstanding. And if ever anyone is so well off as to not want all a share, there are a dozen others standing by ready to relieve him of it. Only the dregs that the ladle cannot reach are tipped out and thrown into the garbage tins. Along with that, there sometimes go a few turnip peelings, moldy bread crusts, and all kinds of muck. This thin, miserable, dirty garbage is the objective of the prisoners. They pick it out of the stinking tins greedily and go off with it under their blouses. It is strange to see these enemies of ours so close up. They have faces that make one think, honest peasant faces, broad foreheads, broad noses, broad mouths, broad hands, and thick hair. They ought to be put to threshing, reaping, and apple picking. They look just as kindly as our own peasants in Friesland. It is distressing to watch their movements, to see them begging for something to eat. They are all rather feeble, for they only get enough nourishment to keep them from starving. Ourselves, we have not had sufficient to eat for long enough. They have dysentery. Furtively, many of them display the blood-stained tails of their shirts. Their backs, their necks are bent, their knees sag, their heads droop as they stretch out their hands and beg in the few words of German that they know, beg with those soft, deep, musical voices that are like warm stoves in cozy rooms at home. Some men there are who give them a kick so that they fall over. But those are not many. The majority do nothing to them, just ignore them. Occasionally, when they are too groveling, it makes a man mad, and then he kicks them. If only they would not look at one so. What great misery can be in 2 such small spots, no bigger than a man's thumb, in their eyes. They come over to the camp in the evenings and trade. They exchange whatever they possess for bread. Often they have fair success because they have very good boots and ours are bad. The leather of their knee boots is wonderfully soft, like suede. The peasants among us who get tidbits sent from home can afford to trade. The price of a pair of boots is about 2 or 3 loaves of army bread, or a loaf of bread and a small tough ham sausage. But most of the Russians have long since parted with whatever things they had. Now they wear only the most pitiful clothing and try to exchange little carvings and objects that they have made out of shell fragments and copper driving bands. Of course, they don't get much for such things, though they may have taken immense pains with them. They go for a slice or 2 of bread. Our peasants are hard and cunning when they bargain. They hold a piece of bread and sausage right under the nose of the Russian till he grows pale with greed and his eyes bulge, and then he will give them anything for it. The peasants wrap up their booty with utmost solemnity. and then get out their big pocket knives and slowly and deliberately cut off a slice of bread for themselves from their supply, and with every mouthful take a piece of the good tough sausage and so reward themselves with a good feed. It is distressing to watch them take their afternoon meal thus. One would like to crack them over their thick pates. They rarely give anything away. How little we understand one another. I am often on guard over the Russians. In the darkness, one sees their forms move like 6 storks, like great birds. They come close up to the wire fence and lean their faces against it. Their fingers hook round the mesh. Often many stand side by side and breathe the wind that comes down from the moors and the forest. They rarely speak, and then only a few words. They are more human and more brotherly towards one another, it seems to me, than we are. But perhaps that is merely because they feel themselves to be more unfortunate than us. Anyway, the war is over so far as they are concerned. But to wait for dysentery is not much of a life either. The territorials who were in charge of them say that they were much more lively at first. They used to have intrigues among themselves, as always happens, and it would often come to blows and knives. But now they are quite apathetic and listless. Most of them do not masturbate anymore. They are so feeble. Though otherwise things come to such a pass that whole huts full of them do it. They stand at the wire fence. Sometimes one goes away, and then another one takes his place in the line. Most of them are silent. Occasionally one begs a cigarette butt. I see their dark forms, their beards move in the wind. I know nothing of them except that they are prisoners, and that is exactly what troubles me. Their life is obscure and guiltless. If I could know more of them, what their names are, how they live, what they are waiting for, what their burdens, then my emotion would have an object and might become sympathy. But as it is, I perceive behind them only the suffering of the creature, the awful melancholy of life, and the pitilessness of men. A word of command has made these silent figures our enemies. A word of command might transform them into our friends. At some table, a document is signed by some persons whom none of us knows, and then for years together that very crime on which formerly the world's condemnation and severest penalty fall becomes our highest aim. But who can draw such a distinction when he looks at these quiet men with their childlike faces and apostles' beards? Any non-commissioned officer is more of an enemy to a recruit, any schoolmaster to a pupil, than they are to us. And yet we would shoot at them again, and they at us if they were free. I am frightened. I dare think this way no more. This way lies the abyss. It is not now the time, but I will not lose these thoughts. I will keep them, shut them away until the war is ended. My heart beats fast. This is the aim, the great, the sole aim that I have thought of in the trenches, that I have looked for as the only possibility of existence after this annihilation of all human feeling. This is a task that will make my life afterward worthy of these hideous years. I take out my cigarettes, break each one in half, and give them to the Russians. They bow to me and then light the cigarettes. Now red points glow in every face. They comfort me. It looks as though there were little windows in dark village cottages saying that behind them are rooms full of peace. The days go by. On a foggy morning, another of the Russians is buried. Almost every day one of them dies. I am on guard during the burial. The prisoners sing in a chorale. They sing in parts, and it sounds almost as if there were no voices, but an organ far away on the moor. The burial is quickly over. In the evening, they stand again at the wire fence, and the wind comes down to them from the beech woods. The stars are cold. I now know a few of those who speak a little German. There is a musician amongst them. He says he used to be a violinist in Berlin. When he hears that I can play the piano, he fetches his violin and plays. The others sit down and lean their backs against the fence. He stands up and plays. Sometimes he has that absent expression that violinists get when they close their eyes. Or again, he sways the instrument to the rhythm and smiles across to me. He plays mostly folk songs, and the others hum with him. They are like a country of dark hills that sing far down under the ground. The sound of the violin stands like a slender girl above it and is clear and alone. The voices cease, and the violin continues alone. In the night it is so thin it sounds frozen. One must stand close up. It would be much better in a room. Out here it makes a man grow sad. Because I have already had a long leave, I get none on Sundays. So the last Sunday before I go back to the front, my father and eldest sister came over to see me. All day we sit in the soldiers' home. Where else could we go? We don't want to stay in the camp. About midday we go for a stroll on the moors. The hours are a torture. We do not know what to talk about. So we speak of my mother's illness. It is now definitely cancer. She is already in the hospital and will be operated on shortly. The doctors hope she will recover. But we have never heard of cancer being cured. Where is she then, I ask. In the Louisa Hospital, says my father. In which class? Third, we must wait till we know what the operation costs. She wanted to be in the third herself. She said that then she would have some company. And besides, it is cheaper. So she is lying there with all those people. If only she could sleep properly. My father nods. His face is broken and full of furrows. My mother has always been sickly, and though she has only gone to the hospital when she has been compelled to, it has cost a great deal of money, and my father's life has been practically given up to it. If only I knew how much the operation cost, says he. Have you not asked? Not directly. I cannot do that. The surgeon might take it amiss, and that would not do. He must operate on Mother. Yes, I think bitterly. That's how it is with us, and with all poor people. They don't dare to ask the price, but worry themselves dreadfully beforehand about it. But the others, for whom it is not important, they settle the price first as a matter of course, and the doctor does not take it amiss from them. The dressings afterwards are so expensive, says my father. Doesn't the Invalid's Fund pay anything toward it then, I ask? Mother has been ill too long. Have you any money at all? He shakes his head. No, but I can do some overtime. I know. He will stand at his desk, folding and pasting and cutting until 12 o'clock at night. At 8 o'clock in the evening, he will eat some miserable rubbish they get in exchange for their food tickets. Then he will take a powder for his headache and work on. In order to cheer him up a bit, I tell him a few stories, soldiers' jokes and the like, about generals and sergeant majors. Afterwards, I accompany them both to the railway station. They give me a pot of jam and a bag of potato cakes that my mother has made for me. Then they go off, and I return to the camp. In the evening, I spread the jam on the cakes and eat some, but I have no taste for them. So I go out to give them to the Russians. Then it occurs to me that my mother cooked them herself, and that she was probably in pain as she stood before the hot stove. I put the bag back in my pack and take only 2 cakes to the Russians.